Because until we've gotten to that top of the ladder of that spiral, then we have no business being here. And now that we've searched and we've dug up all the problems, how it manifests, how it shows its face, how people are unhappy with themselves, and what this actually means, how can we now give them some solutions, how to counteract these issues? Ladies?
Well, okay, so in my book, I give a 4-step process, and we've kind of been talking about it, but I'll go over it right now. The first step is wake up to the truth of who you are. So that's like get into a really delicious relationship with the idea of yourself, the experience of yourself, the expression of yourself as an integrated spiritual human person, not just as a human person, but that you are understanding what the universal laws of the universe are, and that you're working in harmony with those laws to create the life that you want to live. Yeah. And you are looking at yourself with an internal locus of control, which means I am a creator in my life. I am the most important being that breathes life into my life. The divine is acting in my life through me, as me in my life. I have to be actively engaged and see myself something more than just a human. Step 2 is once you're on that path, get rid of all the stuff that doesn't line up. So the cutting behavior, or the alcohol behavior, or the any way that you devalue yourself, your low self-esteem, find out what's triggering those things. What from your past set you up to keep that going, and get rid of it. Step 3, heal it and get rid of it. Step 3 is make up story of you or life. In an ideal world, you are making you the most important thing in your life. Not everybody else has to make you the most important thing in your life. You do in their life, but you do, and live from that place. And as you are in this self-aware, self-accepting, self-love with you, the world conforms universal law. And then step 4, take up the reins and go live it. So what are the practices? Are there people you need to release from your life? Are there things, ways of being, meditation, laughter, play? What kinds of practices support you to be that highest version of yourself and continually spiraling up?
I love it. I love it. I love it. The laws of the universe. We have
those are great.
Hi, Anita.
Hi.
Hi, Anita. Welcome.
Hi, I'm joining late.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. Now, Kimmy, how would you suggest that we correct these issues of low self-esteem, these issues, as Valerie mentioned? I like those. Find out what your past triggers, what triggers these behaviors. Yeah, I like that, and deal with that.
Yeah. Well, so my doorway into my work happens to be through relationships. So when you're involved in a relationship, you're going to get triggered. And whether you're not, right, relationships are not for the faint of heart, right? They're for people who want to grow. They're opportunities for growth, right?
Yes, yes.
And so there are going to be things that upset us. There are going to be things that either we're not getting a need met or something important met. So I call it moving from furious to curious. Curiosity always beats furious. So the first thing is to notice what's happening, right? You've got to notice what you're experiencing and then turn inward and ask, what is it that I really want? What is it that would make my heart sing? What do I desire? And getting really clear about that. And then, you use that as your guide point for where you want to go. So I teach my clients as women, the women, how to express what they need in a way that works with their partner or their boss or their friends, learning how to do it. And instead of having to lead with criticism, they can lead with, what would make me happy is. So it's about turning it around and being curious with yourself, or curious with the other person, curious about your experience, using curiosity to lead you, noticing where you're at, and then you can express that what you desire instead. And that becomes whether it's your own work that you need to do, like what would make me happy is to go for a walk in the forest, or to take a nap, or to travel, whatever that is, that will make me happy. And then I express it. And then, in fact, I worked with somebody what was going to make her happy was getting a promotion where she could manage more people. Wow. And she had this conversation with her boss. Instead of being upset, she had this, heart-based conversation with him. And she had the raise within 2 weeks because it was done from a this way instead of a critical way,
Well,
so that's
probably, I'm also hearing what you're saying, Kimi, that she probably made it about her and her needs instead about him and what he wasn't doing and how he wasn't
exactly
to her expectations and all that stuff. So I'm just totally tracking.
And that's very interesting. And it's very interesting that is how you have presented it, using curiosity, Kimi, because a lot of women, as we flushed out before, that a lot of women tend to take on a lot of things and they leave themselves last. So when you ask a woman, well, what do you want? Sometimes that baffles her, because does she really know what she wants? Seriously, what do you want? And guys will say this all the time.
Women,
I don't know what she wants.
Women typically don't know what they need until they're really about it. So when we ask for what we need, hey, I really need to be in a relationship that's mutually uplifting, and your drinking every night isn't working for me. So we sort of say it calmly, right? And then we tend to escalate from a level, on a scale of 1 to 10. At a level 3, we're begging and pleading for him not to drink, or our partner not to drink.
Wow.
And then we go into a tantrum on the level, then we really know we don't need that. But our delivery doesn't work because all they hear is the explosion. Pigpen. I love that, Valerie, when you said that. All they hear is the explosion, and they can't hear the need, right? What you truly need and desire. So if you need to slow it down and get clarity for yourself about what is desire, and that is not easy because we don't know what we need. It's not natural for us to immediately know off the top of our head what it is we need. For men, it's really different. Typically, they know what they need really clearly. And then they come on sort of bullish to us. That's how it feels to us. I need this. And we're like, whoa, don't be so demanding. Well, there's something that we could learn about that, about being clear.
I think the other thing that I've experienced with some of my clients and some for myself is that some of the knowing comes from the lack of self-awareness and self-acceptance. So
yes.
We're not willing to be in relationship with ourselves deeply enough that we can have that kind of conversation with ourselves that says, what do I need? We are conditioned, we are taught that all of our happiness and fulfillment comes from outside of us. That, even having a conversation where you're telling someone, it will make me happy if, and it's the if is conditioned upon something they do or don't do, to me, that's setting ourselves up for failure. Because as soon as that changes, then so does our opportunity for happiness. And so as women or men, the deeper we can go into what's going on with me right now. So I'll give you an example. So I was dating this guy who I am definitely in love with, just a beautiful, wonderful man. And what I've been watching in the relationship is not how he's doing the relationship, but how I'm doing the relationship. And I have decided, I've made a conscious decision, whether this relationship is the be-all and end-all or not, what it will be for me is an opportunity for me to, in your idea of curiosity, Kimi, it's going to be me to observe and interact with me and bring out the highest version of me. So
can you explain that?
Yeah, when he does certain things, and I feel this need to say, I hate it when you do that, A would be not calling enough. All right? So the first thing I go, the curiosity for me goes, why matter? Like, what is enough? So if he called every night, would I be satisfied, or would I want him to call twice a day and every night? So the question, and before, this is without ever having a conversation with him. This is Valerie doing Valerie's work with Valerie for Valerie, okay?
Yeah.
Because then I don't have to put the stress on the relationship. I can say, why can't I be satisfied with him calling when he calls? He's doing the relationship the way it feels good for him. It shouldn't be the way for me. It should be, I find someone who the way they want to show up matches with the way I want to show up. And if I'm with someone where that's not a match, I should be asking myself, is this the one for me? Rather than, you need to conform to the way I need you to be in this relationship. And I know there's some give and take there, and there's all kinds of other dynamics, but just on a very foundational, bare bones level. So then I can say to myself, oh, this desire for him to call every day is really my inner child who felt abandoned by my father, and who looks for all the other men in her life to make up that deep pit of place where I didn't feel like I was enough to be lovable. I didn't feel beautiful enough. I didn't have a certain kind of male reinforcement of me as a beautiful woman. And I'm expecting this guy to fill that up. Well, if I go do that, then when he calls, he calls. We have a great conversation. That's the end of it. And if I still want to talk to him more, now I can be a conscious participant in the relationship and say, you know what, honey, I want to present something for you. I would love it if we talked more often. How does that work for you? How do you feel about that? And then if he says, well, what does more often mean? Then we can have a conversation about that, instead of me putting on him that he's not living up to my expectations.
Oh,
I love that.
Absolutely, Valerie. So I talk about relationship success depends on making great deals. And it's each person knowing what they need and finding that, you know, the Venn diagram, right? Finding the 25% overlap.
Yes.
And that's the sweet spot. And, you know, it surprises people. They think, oh, our relationship should meet 100% of our needs. If you expect that, it is never going to work. And if it's less than 25%, you're going to have to up that time together. And, you know, it's a little harder to keep it going if it's lower than 25. But in that 25%, there are things that overlap there. And that's where you need to make the deal, right? And then the rest of it is owning our own stuff. It's more about being interdependent and building that, what I call the platinum rule of relationships, which is to do unto others as they would have you do for them. And that's about making deals and caring about what your partner needs. For both partners, do that for each other, but also not expecting your partner to meet every single one of your needs.
Right.
You know, there's certain things that you get right, and there are some things that if we expect our partner to meet all that, or that they just can never ever satisfy that. And so I actually make a distinction between requirements, which must be there or you will be happy, then needs, which are negotiable, and then wants, which are the icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. If you're in a relationship where your requirement is not met and you are constantly fighting about the same thing, you need to question whether that relationship's work for you. Needs can be negotiable. There's certain things, like my husband is not a super spiritual person. He doesn't like to talk about God and the vortex and, you know, the law of attraction. He's not into that. Yeah. He likes to go scuba diving and hang out with the fish. That's his spirit. That's like, you know, so for us, that's a need. So I have friends that I can talk to about that. And I can you know, beg him and plead for him to provide something that he can never provide. Or I can say, I love you and we'll find our overlap a different way. and I'm going to have my spiritual conversations with my girlfriends and my guy friends. And we made a deal about that, you know?
Okay.
So I think it takes the pressure off of somebody else. In my case, I learned what I needed, and I knew I needed to have that in my life. And I found a way to work a deal with my husband so that he doesn't feel bad all the time, and I'm getting that need met.
So, Kimi, going back to what you said, requirements, needs, and wants. Requirements are non-negotiable. Needs are negotiable. And the wants, they're negotiable as well.
Are like the icing on the cake. It's like, ooh, sweet, you know, bonus. Oh, and he's got that too. You know?
And I think that that's a beautiful triad of things that we can also give to ourselves. You know, like there should be, what are the requirements for me to feel content and fulfilled with myself, and to be on that spiral up into my consciousness that gives me the greatest power to reach my full. And then what are the needs, and then what's the icing on the cake, the wants.
Yeah.
I love that, Valerie, because it's true. It's absolutely true. And I've really not looked at it in that way, but absolutely that applies.
You know, Kimi, and I could see even having the conversation. Now, what I like about your Zen diagram is I always say, and every time I get invited to a wedding or I send a card about somebody being in a relationship, I say the same thing. Remember, 1 + 1 = 3. To me, your Zen diagram and that the third entity, that the two of you agree on creating a certain way that meets both of your needs. And so this whole idea, I can even see when we're really good at doing this self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-love, then we show up in a relationship already knowing, or not all the time, but at least in the present moment, being a lot clearer on those requirements, needs, and wants for ourselves. And then when we're creating that overlap, we can have a much more conscious decision in advance, instead of in a heated moment where we've been going without for so long, and now we're talking about, why don't you blah blah blah, instead of, you know what, this is the way I show up in relationship. This is the stuff that makes me tick and I kind of look for. How do you feel about this? What's your list? Let's together and compare the notes. And that seems like it would be better at the beginning rather than when you're further down the road and all hell's breaking loose.
You know what I love about what you said, Valerie, what I loved about what you had said was how you did that search within before you even connected with your husband and said, hey, or your love, and said, you know, why isn't it you're not calling me? Because reaction, and we as humans are noted for being so super reactive. We just react. Oh, this doesn't make me feel good, and you react instead of going within and knowing that, yeah, it's my perception, and what's causing this perception. What is the real deep root of me having this perception? So I love that exercise. Do you have a name for that exercise?
I just call it introspection. It's just you know, it's in my process. It's the wake up. Like, what is going on? Like, what do I need to be waking up to? Oh, right now I feel like the perception that I have is that so-and-so is doing something that is making me, quote unquote, makes me feel, fill in the blank, right? And I'm saying, because of the other work I do and the 4-step process and everything, that that's not true. There is no such thing as he makes me or she makes me anything. I'm making choices every moment, and I, as a conscious person, need to know what's triggering those choices. And so being willing to say, wait, maybe this isn't about how many times James is calling me. This is about how I'm interpreting and perceiving and receiving how James is calling me. Because there are some people who, if a guy calls you once a week, they're fine with it, right? So if it's okay with them and it's not okay with me, that starts to tell me, maybe this situation has a dynamic that is unique and specific to the way I'm experiencing the situation.
Right. I love it. I love it. Well, ladies, I so enjoyed our conversation this evening. Oh my goodness. Anita, you came at the brink of it, but is there any question or comment that you may have on